Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have our second ever male therapist in our podcast. This is so exciting. Introduce yourself, tell us who you are, tell us where you work, and what your views are on mental health.
So, hi everybody. My name is Kenneth James. I am a therapist for First Episode Psychosis Clinic in New Jersey. Treating clients that's going through their first episode, also experiencing some symptoms of, bipolar 2 as well. So, it's been a journey. I would say my view on mental health is definitely expanded. Coming from, background family, a lot of times we tend to like brush off mental health thinking that we can carry this baggage by ourselves. But once getting into the career, I learned that, you can't be a therapist without, I guess, having some services for yourself. So not too long ago, I actually started going for myself. So my view has definitely expanded. I think that everyone should definitely keep their eyes open to it and at least have at least one session just to see what it's like. We all carry a lot. We all carry a lot.
Kenny, honestly, I
Mm-hmm.
was really surprised when I found out that you got your license. I was like,
Really?
no way. Yeah, no, I don't know. I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I
Nah,
never thought,
nah,
I
no.
never thought to see you as a therapist. So then I was just
Yeah.
like, well, because I know that you also work for a clothing company too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I was just like, what? Because I thought you
I
were just
know.
like only focused on that part, or that
Right.
job. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really surprising to me, and honestly it was really exciting for me when I found out, because there's not many males in the mental health field, you know what I mean? This is a very
No.
female dominated field, right? So
Yeah,
I
for
was just
sure.
like, this is awesome. So can you tell me, like, what made you want to get into the field in the first place?
So undergrad, right? I went to undergrad in Baltimore. Then after I graduated from Morgan, I decided to go to grad school, right? But when I was in actually my advisor's office, they were like, "Hey, like, what are you thinking about doing, like, comes graduate post graduation?" I'm like, I really want to be a forensic psychologist. I think that's everybody's goal as a psychology major. I feel like at some point everyone wanted to do forensics, right?
It's
So
cool. That's why.
yeah, but once I actually got into the field, they were like, my advisor was like, it's not like what you see on TV. They run a lot of tests, they do a lot of different things around that, realm. And I was like, I'm not really too big on tests, like running tests, things like that. I'm not really into that. I really want that person to person interaction. So actually, it was another teacher that I had on staff, and she was actually on like a board in Maryland for like counseling or something like that. And she's like, I really think you'd be do good in like the counseling profession. You'll be giving back to a lot of people that, walked a lot of same paths that you've been in. I feel like you'll have a good outlook on it. So that's when I decided to go in and do it. And I ended up loving it. I started to love it. So I would say that it was kind of like a shift in focus when I got to college. Yeah, for sure.
What did you do for your internship?
So I worked as a student counselor in a student center for Queens in Queens.
What was your first job in the mental health field before you even
Yeah,
got licensed anyway?
so I worked for a residential facility here in New Jersey. So pretty much clients, with diagnosis schizophrenia, bipolar, and they were living at this assisted living place that had like groups, cooking groups, things like that, keeping track, like really like case management work for the most part, making sure like their benefits were in order, things like that. And to order to live in the program, you had to have a primary diagnosis of schizophrenia to be in the program. So a lot of those clients that lived at the location were referred out to like go to therapy outside services and things like that. So pretty much like just keeping of like the client's well-being, making sure that they're taking medications, things like that. So it was like residential housing I worked for at first about 3 years.
And what was
Okay.
your role there?
I was the program manager. I ran the program.
How did you do
Like we would
it?
get it was a lot actually, a lot of these clients were referred from like, the state hospital. So, when they come from the state hospital, it's a lot different. Yeah. It's a lot different for them trying to adapt to the outside world, and they're moving from all different locations. So you're coming to, I'll just say the area I was in, was in like New Brunswick, Highland Park area. And, you're coming from South Jersey or wherever, you don't know this location. So they're changing over their doctors, you're getting them hooked up with a new therapist, things like that. So it's a lot of different changes for them too. So I think that it was a good experience for my first step into casework, to have that first step to see exactly what it was like to even deal with someone, deal with the population that have a diagnosis. So I think it was a good first job, I would say, for sure.
As a therapist, like, or as somebody who went from a completely different field
Hmm.
to mental health, did you have like that aha moment at some point where you were like, this is exactly what it is that I've been looking for?
Yeah, so I work for right now currently in the for a psychosis clinic, and I noticed that like this is a population that I knew I always wanted to work with. My thing on therapy is like, for me to be involved or me to be like super engaged into it, I feel like they need a population of like, staff of therapists to work with that population. A lot of people, believe it or not, shy away from that. They don't really want to work in psychosis, or they hear about the turnover rate in that specific area, but I like it, so I knew that population was something I always wanted to work with, Samantha. So that's when I knew kind of like I was in the right spot for sure.
It's a very, very interesting field, but also a very hard field. So I commend you for doing that
Yeah.
because I did it for like a year and I was just like, I like it, but it's not for me.
Sometimes you just kind of know, like you said, like the spot that you're supposed to be in, or if it's just a spot that you're supposed to transition from. I think that's
Hmm.
important, like knowing when the time is to move.
Exactly, yeah, but that's honestly great that you knew exactly where your niche was. Because
Yeah.
it takes, for some people, it takes trial and error. I know it took me trial and
Oh
error.
yeah.
It's still taking me trial and error.
Same. Psychosis is definitely something I'm interested in, but it's other areas too that I want to like tap into. Just trying to figure out how to.
Like what?
Gotcha.
Actually, I've been like, in the creative world, like you said, with fashion
Yeah.
company, things like that. I wanted to be a therapist for creatives, actually. Yeah.
Interesting. How would that look like?
That's kind of the part I'm trying to figure out. There's actually a therapist that I'm following now. She's actually does it. She has like a production company, and like in the company, like people come to her warehouse for therapy, but can also shop. You know what I mean? Cause so it's like therapy and like retail therapy and also face to face. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool as well.
So, Kenny, honestly, like you work in a department that is no joke, right? And
Yeah.
and like you said, this isn't like for everybody. So working with psychosis isn't for everybody, and I know it's definitely not for me. Like
Uh-huh.
I just had a client yesterday who is coming in because they have psychosis, and a lot of them that, or at least from my experience, a lot of them that
Hmm.
have come in because like they were hospitalized and they were seeing
Oh
things or hearing things that other people couldn't, but then when they come in they're kind of just like, I don't know why I was hospitalized, like,
yeah.
like
You
I don't know, I'm fine, like I'm doing okay, and I'm just like, then like, what are you doing here? But then when I
Ashley,
see
you're
the
yeah,
when I
you are
see the
right.
report, they like freaking tried to fight their family members and they were like breaking things. And I was like, this is not how
Punching
they
the
were
ceiling.
presented.
Yeah. Right. So you know what it is? There's that thought blocking with psychosis, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, thought blocking, those terms, things like that. So a lot of the times they don't remember those episodes, or like, at the time, the state that they were in, it's removed out of their head. Like a lot of the time, that's a common theme that I've noticed in with these clients is that, they have a lot of the thought blocking symptoms cause them not to remember the symptoms or when the episode happens at all. And the trauma from people reminding them is a lot for them because a lot of times, actually, like, they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed about certain things that they, because, they're like in a different state of mind. So you gotta be mindful of that too. That's one thing I can't say about the population. A lot of them are embarrassed about their symptoms. I noticed that.
Mm.
That's something that, like, they have to wear with every day.
Something I
Hmm.
noticed when I was working with the population was that when they weren't on the right meds,
Hmm.
they acted completely different. And then when they finally got those meds, they were a different person altogether. The more I worked with them, the more I was able to actually tell when they stopped taking their meds and started
Yeah.
to wean off. And I'm like, you're acting different. Have you been
Hmm.
taking your meds? And then that's when we do like a med count and everything. I remember essentially just like the turn with their personalities when they were on the right meds versus when they were off the meds.
Or when the meds are like tweaked down. I mean, sometimes, like for example, a client might be doing well, and a doctor or a psychiatrist might, lower the dosage of their medication or something, and then you realize like that wasn't the right thing or the right timing to do, and they may have to tweak it again. So yeah, that's something I've noticed too as well. and finding the right combination, a lot of trial and error. You may not know what med works. And at the FEP clinic too, we're learning that there is a medication for like ADHD that like can trigger psychosis and things like that. So that's important to look at too. There's a lot of different things that can also go into it too, like, marijuana usage, things like that. So
I didn't really think about it that way, about, the thought blocking, because I would get so frustrated because I'm like, this person is telling me a whole lot of nothing right now, and I have no idea what to work with in the moment, right? So then kind of just sit there and I'm just like, okay, like, right? And so I didn't think about it that way, and you just educated me on something that I actually. So again, like, I'm not really well versed in like the psychosis world. Right.
Okay.
So the fact that you even said that now, like, I'm much more aware of that now, and it makes
Yeah.
so much sense now, especially, going forward when I see these type of clients.
Yeah.
So I give you props. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you have the patience to do it, because I do not. But like, when working with psychosis, is there any specific interventions that you use at all?
What is it? I forgot. It starts like the IRT model. So it's like a model for like cognitive reconstruction, right? A lot of the model is basically, so a lot of these clients, you got to meet them where they're at. You know what I mean? That's like, I guess that's every location, any type of facility you work for.
Yeah.
But so the model is pretty much reframing their thoughts or like negative views on this diagnosis, right? So a lot of the times, the biggest part of it is like, a lot of them, like, what is it, from 16 to 25 or so, they have this precursor, or there may be like I forgot the exact word for it, but symptoms that come before you actually have the outbreak. So they may have had symptoms 2-3 years prior to them actually having their first episode, but they may have like pushed it off or not really noticed it, or mom or dad or grandma, whoever is raising them, may have thought it wasn't really nothing to really think about, but they use like a cognitive reconstruction model. So, how to reframe the thoughts of like, these negative thoughts. Oh, I have this episode, I have this sickness to working with. Oh, how can I cope and use these coping skills to move forward? You know what I mean? As far as like, clients that hear voices and, see things like that, medication is a huge component of it too as well, and keeping them present in the moment. So a lot of the times our interventions is having them centered on like concentration, giving them different worksheets and things like that to help them focus and recenter focus, things like that. So that's a lot of the time what we tend to focus on in session. Also, too, Ashley, we run like 3 groups a week, 4 groups a week too. So that's a good way as well in our program too. The motto is called WRAP, like WRAP too. So we wrap them tightly with all these different services that they can engage with daily. I mean, or weekly to come into. So have that attention. So a lot of the times too, I know you guys are heard of the symptom of paranoia. Everybody knows paranoia. Like, so paranoia is a big symptom in psychosis. So a lot of the times they think, even like their close family members, even their treatment team is against them. So a lot of the times, like my supervisor, other colleagues, they try to tell you, it's them getting familiar with you. That's the biggest part, building that rapport, getting them familiar to come into treatment, getting them to understand like, oh, this is what therapy is like. Therapy isn't all negative. So I think the familiarity with therapy is the biggest component with the population I work with, because my clients are anywhere from 17 to 30. That's really young. So having them familiar with treatment is the biggest part of my job daily. Like, just having them familiar with coming in.
Do you have a big caseload right now?
It's growing. It is, yeah, 30. I think I'm at 30 right now. I think 40 is max. But I know that they try to say like, my program is specialized because we don't have to have like 100. How big is your caseload, Ashley?
Don't remind me, Kenny. I have right now over 100 right now, because last time I checked, which was like a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, was like 88. So I probably have over 100 right now, and we're supposed to have like max 150.
Right. So I've heard that classic outpatient is like, you'll have like 100 to 150. Yeah. But my specific program, I think in the whole program, we're supposed to have 100 to 200 clients. So every clinician is supposed to probably get 30 to 40 clients. So that's where we're at right now.
Wow. And I wonder if you have like the same kind of like workflow as us too, like you're just having the back-to-back clients, and then you have like your paperwork time, and then you have your lunch.
Paperwork.
Do you get like 2 paperwork times?
Wait, you got paperwork times?
30
No,
minutes though.
No,
we
I
get
don't get paperwork
so
time.
pretty much, Ashley, right? We have to write our notes whenever we have time. So like I write my notes in session. Collaborative writing, that's what I
Yep.
tend to do. Or if that doesn't work out, I literally actually I'll write my notes on my lunch, or like things like that. Cause I'm the type that at 5 o'clock, I don't want to go home with it. You know what I mean? And God knows by Friday, I don't remember my note from Tuesday or Monday. So I have to have it in by that day.
Mhm.
So I'm the type that has to have my notes in the day of. That's something I've had to learn to work with because I know for sure like writing notes is something that I'm a good writer, but being able to have that time management is big. So
No,
It's
yeah,
hard too.
yeah, it's really hard. I'm
it's
still shocked that you have time, like a specific time to write your notes.
Well, yeah,
you
because
do actually
well,
they give you that
yeah,
like a
so I actually scheduled my paperwork time like right after my lunch. So my lunch is at 12 and then I have paperwork time at 12:30 and then after that my next paperwork time is at 2:30. But it doesn't always work that way though because like sometimes I'm just like staring at the freaking wall during my break just like grasping what all the things that I heard throughout the day and it's hard to
yeah.
get it done. I'm not gonna lie. And like even during session sometimes I like to give my clients my undivided some of my clients my undivided attention and some other times I'll also do collaborative documentation as well. So it's something I was not doing before this job, collaborative documentation. So I'm definitely still trying to get used to it because again, I've always been used to just giving you my undivided attention and like just us looking at each other in the eyes and just like giving each other that active
Talking.
listening. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know what I mean? So it is hard. It is hard to get your documentation done all in that one day. It's not easy.
What got you interested in going into fashion?
Fashion, I would say, has always been the biggest like piece of my life. You know what I mean? Like, so my mom actually worked at Macy's Ralph Lauren for like 30 years, like, and since like the late 90s, early 2000s. So she's always had a big nick for fashion. So that kind of rubbed off on me. And actually, so my best friend from high school started a clothing brand, and he was like, Kenny, I want you to do this with me. This is something that we've always had our hearts in, things like that. So him and a few of his business partners too, and we started it out together in high school. So that's something that's always just been something that I've always loved, always had like just a love for it, just like wearing clothes, like expressing yourself through fashion. So I always like that, and to also see how things change over time, right? Like what was in, what was not in, what comes back around. Like that's always cool to see. So this has always been a part of my life. So I would say mostly from my mom. My mom always had a eye for fashion, and I just took after that, honestly.
As a male therapist, has there been any stigmas that you've come across that have essentially probably made the job a little harder than you anticipated?
Oh yeah. So my first 3 months, 3 months was rough at where I'm at currently now. At the clinic, at the FEP clinic. Oh yeah. It was rough because so I'm the youngest on the unit. Everyone thinks you don't really know what's going on, you know what I mean? Kinda. Second mental health job. A lot of my coworkers are coming from like inpatient for like 5 years. Like they've been doing it for a long time, 35, 40 plus, you know what I mean? So they feel like you don't really know much. So I had to deal with that. And then also learning the system of how the workflow works. I didn't know that at all. So like typing out a full core assessment, things like actually you had to write a full core full
Oh
assessment,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, like that stuff was a lot. And when I first came into job, they kind of made you think that you're supposed to just know everything. I'm gonna be honest with you, the training was terrible. I didn't really have the best training, like you know what I mean. So I didn't really know. They kind of just threw me into the fire. I feel like these clinics need to do a better, like it can be better if they can their training model just needs to be better. Like I feel like that it needs to be better because you can't just throw someone in the fire and think they're supposed to know everything. To be honest, what we learned in a textbook on how to be a therapist is nothing like what we're doing at the job. So that doesn't even matter. So like what really does matter besides the experience? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like you can't just expect someone to come onto a job and just know everything without them getting their feet wet. And that's something I did not like at the location that we're at. Like I didn't like that. It was stressful, Samantha. I would say it was like to the point where I didn't even, it was times I would come home and be like, do I even really want to do this? So, I managed to get through. As I went on, with, different clinicians on your team, having that support, it was helpful to get me through. So
Oh my
I would
God.
say.
Yes, that is super important. Honestly, that's what's keeping me going, because this is a
Hmm.
very, very stressful job. And especially when you're seeing back-to-back clients and like you don't really have the time to breathe. And like there's just so much documentation to do, so much phone calls you have to make. Like it's a lot. There's so many things going on all at once, right? And then you might be dealing with some difficult clients who are always like calling you and harassing you. And like it's so much that sometimes it's just like I can't do this, right? But
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
right. And I'm so grateful to have my coworkers. I really am, because they come into my room, they'll check in on me like, "Hey, how's your day going? Like, are you doing okay? Like, do you have any questions? Anything like that?" You know what I mean? And I find that so important. When the job is stressful, at least I have my coworkers there to lean on.
And
Yeah.
that's the biggest part, It's like, when a coworker has telling like, listen, I came in, I didn't know nothing either. I had to figure it out for myself too. Like that makes you feel like a little bit more comfortable, because it's like, okay, everyone started from somewhere. Everyone had to, go through different stepping stones to get to where they're at now. So I think that at the end of the day, everything that you go through, it is worth it. I would say it's all worth it.
So, growing up as a man,
Yeah.
how did were you ever able to feel your emotions in your family? Were you always told to like suck it up and just
Hmm.
keep it moving? Or like did you learn that from like just growing up with friends? Like how was it for you to like feel your emotions growing up? And I wonder, now being in the mental health field, like that has shifted your perspective so much. Like tell me about that.
Yeah. I've came from a very loving family. Mom and dad at home. Mom and dad always, told me like, if you can't tell me anything, who am I supposed to expect you to tell? Kind of like in terms of like, I'm here for you with open arms kind of thing. My parents always gave me that support from day one. So I would say I've always been able to express them. It wasn't always like, yo, Kenny, suck it up. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Which was good. But I learned a lot about, I guess, how to channel those emotions, because a lot of the times we may project or take the emotions out the wrong way. So I think as time went on, having a father figure too, also too, to show you how to navigate and utilize those emotions in the right way was very helpful. But being around a certain friend group, you do like, being in a certain culture, hanging around a certain amount of friends, you do have ways that make you, act out and things like that too. So I had to learn a lot of reframing of how I think about things. So that's one thing too, as I got older and also mature too, a lot of that has to do with maturity, learning to like, not lash out, or how do I react more positively to this situation. I had to learn that over time. But to answer your question though, actually, I would say my core values, like from the root of it, I was always able to express how I was feeling. So that's something that was always helpful. Like, was always helpful for me. But I did have some time, like, some anger, things like that to get over. So which I have been able to do that through therapy. So that was helpful.
When
But
did
I
you
wasn't
start
in therapy
therapy?
forever. A year ago.
What did you learn about yourself through therapy?
I'm my own kryptonite, I would say. I've learned that. I learned that sometimes I'm in the way of myself. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that
No,
make
it
It
sense?
does.
does.
It does.
That's kind of the biggest thing I learned. Also, I learned like if you feel a certain way, kind of act on it. I'm kind of person that kind of sits in my thoughts, a lot, and like let them wander before I kind of act on them. So I learned that sometimes you got to be proactive instead of reactive.
Hmm.
Yes.
That's something that I learned from myself. Proactive instead of reactive. When you react, it's not always good. Proactive is better.
So when you say that you are your own enemy, right? Do you mean like
Uh-huh.
you are your biggest critic?
Yeah. Yeah. My biggest critic, I could lead myself to a place of paradise or a place of self-destruction, depending on how I maneuver and channel my energy. I think that that's the biggest part for me. Like, sometimes people like, you ever look in the mirror like, oh, that's my biggest battle. People like, oh, my biggest battle is the person across the street or whoever. Mine is with me. I
Wow.
think that is something I realized. I think that's everyone's, like you gotta like be able to wake up and be that better person every day. How do you be better every day? How do you achieve what you want? Because at the end of the day, you gotta prove it to yourself.
It's that internal
So
battle that you
yeah, it's
have
that
with
internal
yourself.
battle. That's my biggest one, I would say. Daily habits, daily things like that. That's what's gonna change you into the person you want to become. The small habits, the little things every day.
Share as much as you want, but what does self-destruction look like to you? Because okay, like
And
and I'll give you, hold on, I'll give you an example for me because I can
okay.
absolutely it to you, right? So like self-destruction looks like to me is like self-sabotaging my happiness. For example, if I'm talking to somebody new or something, I'm like, nope,
Hmm.
I don't deserve this. Like, I'm gonna do everything to like self sabotage this because like I don't feel like I deserve this because I'm my worst critic. I beat myself up because I feel like I'm not good enough because of my physical disability, or I just put thoughts like that in my head, so then I self sabotage it, and like that's it, it's done. Which is a very bad habit of mine, and I'm working on it through therapy. But
Yeah.
but like that's an example for me of like self destruction because like I am my worst critic, right? Like I still think that I'm not good enough because of my physical disability, or like I just have that negative self-talk in my head all the time. So what does
Hmm.
that look like for you?
That for sure, right? And a ball of anger. So it would look like kind of like projecting it in the wrong places, though. Like it may happen in another area, but I'm mad at the whole world. So if you say something to me, somebody else, I may snap back, but I don't really mean it towards them. I'm just mad about something else, another factor. But I kind of like spray it at everybody. You know what I mean? It kind of
Yeah,
goes like a water hose, like it goes everywhere. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
and that's when I realized I gotta just be myself for a few minutes. That's what I kind of do. I take a walk, ride a bike or go play basketball. I'm still active with basketball. So I'll still go out, shoot some hoops. I've been back working out too. So that's been helpful. Doing things like that keep me sane. So I know my big thing is anger. That's what I kind of do, because I tend to lash out on everyone when everyone doesn't deserve that. I would say I need my biggest thing too is learning how to channel like substitute that anger with something more positive, you know?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
sometimes you can say, hey, like, I'm going to the gym, I'm working out, I'm doing this. But when you're angry, you kind of just want to sit down and be more angry, right? You know
For
what I
sure.
The more
mean?
time that you're like pondering your thoughts, then you're just like you get more mad and more mad.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it doesn't benefit no one at all. So, how to
Mhm.
channel that more positively, I would say that's something I'm working on.
In terms of the current
Uh
place that
huh.
you're at, are there any stigmas that people have against people who are schizophrenic that you think are absolutely false and they just, they need to be broken? And if
There.
they are false, what is the accurate
Mhm.
definition of it?
Yeah, there's a lot of like psychosis stigmas. So you got I'll never get better. All these clients, like, I don't even know why you deal with clients in these populations. Like they're never gonna recover or be back to how they're ever gonna be. They need to just learn that. Like things like that. People, you'll be surprised what you hear when you're dealing with a population that dealing with psychosis. So a big one that we come across too is like if they are psychotic, then like what else can they do? And like they'll never be able to work a regular full-time job, which is not true, or a part-time job, like they'll never be able to get back to their regular life. So we host a lot of family sessions at our clinic too, to have those stigmas kind of like talked about and addressed too. So that's been helpful. But I would say the biggest one to answer your question though is probably to be like they'll never ever be able to organize a day-to-day routine where they'll ever be able to get up and have a job and live like a regular routine schedule. That's probably the biggest one. And you hear that a lot. And it starts with their families, to be real. Like, my son's not normal anymore. My daughter started seeing things and hearing things. They're not normal anymore. So like, how do I fix my son or daughter? Parents say that. Like, how do I fix
Mhm.
my son? Or how do I fix my daughter? Can you fix him?
Especially like the fact that like it comes from like the own family and you're just like this is not a matter of fixing. This is just a matter of finding a balance in their life in general and helping them live their lives. This is not something to be fixed. It's yes, it may be considered a disruption, but they can actually live a normal life.
And that's why first episode is so important, because it's first episode, it's early intervention. So through research, we like, I've learned, and my supervisor and a lot of clinicians that's on the unit, our trainings have been taught to, the earlier you catch it or the earlier you start intervention, the more the prognosis, the outcome is better. So that's what we try to work on. The earlier these families make the referral, the earlier they're in treatment, the more likely their outcome will be to live a more structured life.
And what are some symptoms that you would say for our viewers out there for them to look out for if they know that psychosis runs in their family?
People think it's just genes or genetic. So we've learned that
Hmm.
it has been from traumatic stress too. It can be related to drinking too many energy drinks, monster drinks, things like that, caffeine. Yeah. So there's so much that goes into it. And, marijuana was a big thing too, like smoking and things like that. I would say a lot of hearing and seeing things, or hearing voices. Hearing, a lot of those symptoms start first. Hearing things, seeing things, lack of sleep, thinking that certain messages are specifically only for them, that conviction. So a lot of it is something you believe, but it's not really a problem until it's held with conviction. So once it's they're convinced, or like it's convinced that it's for them, that's when you start to know it's becoming a bigger issue. So does that make sense? Kind of like,
Yeah, no, that
um,
makes sense. Yeah.
those are some of the symptoms, consistent internal preoccupation. Someone may be talking, like, may come into a room and your child or somebody's talking to something that's not really there, or you see them talking, but when they notice that you're in a room, they stop real quick. Also, too, a lot of the times people isolate and not leaving their home, feeling like someone's after them or things like that. I would be able to say just being able to keep up with, like, talking to them in dialogue to see how they're thinking, because a lot of the times you realize their thinking changes over time.
Hmm.
They become more focused on, how they can be blocked from like the outside world. You know what I mean? It's more about
Hmm.
how they can protect themselves, rather than, before this, they weren't too worried about what the person across the street was saying or things
Hmm.
like that. You know what I mean? So like I would
Yeah.
say those are some of the symptoms too. People don't really look into stress. Like stress is a huge one. A lot of symptoms to trigger from stress, I would say, for sure.
Hmm. Something that I did hear is that if it does run genetically, it can start to come up around the age of puberty.
Oh yeah.
That would also be something to take into consideration, especially if it runs in your family.
If it runs, yeah, for sure. If it runs in your family, yeah, that. And also, I've noticed that, like, so at our clinic, we have a plethora of twins, a lot
Oh,
of twins at the clinic. Yeah. So we've noticed that it's been prevalent in twins. So that's something to take note of too, as well. We literally have, they're all on my caseload too. I have like 5 clients, and all 5 of them have twins. So
interesting.
yeah, and which was something I took note of. Like, I never worked with these many clients that have twins. So yeah, I think that's also, like, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I'm starting to learn, like, maybe that's also a precursor,
Maybe there's
like,
like a
like,
gene or something.
yeah, or a gene or something with psychosis, So
I'm gonna call you out for a second because I noticed
okay.
that I noticed that when I asked you about like what does that destruction look like for you, you hesitated a little bit there, but I did want to let like that this is what makes us human, right? Aside from us being
Yeah,
these professional people, like helping other people with their struggles and stuff, like we go through shit too. So like I
exactly.
and I appreciate you being able to open up to us about, hey, I get angry and sometimes I like take that anger out on other
Lash
people.
out.
But the fact that you have that self-awareness is awesome. And there's a word for that, like trying to substitute that anger into like something more positive. That's sublimation, right? And
Sublimation, right? I think
yep,
that's what it's called.
yep,
Yeah.
that's sublimation. And so I think it's awesome that you're trying to figure out, like, instead of projecting this onto other people that don't deserve it, like, how can I channel this anger into something more positive. And I know that for me, when I feel really overstimulated and really angry or like really depressed or whatever the case is, like I channel all of that into boxing. That's my form of self-care, right? Because I like to
Hmm.
take my anger out from the I my days are so stressful at the office, so when
So stressful.
I when I feel like I'm just too overstimulated, I go boxing to take all that out, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. So, what do you like to do for self care after a long day of work?
I go straight to the gym. I've been going straight to the gym. Whatever, like, arms, legs, whatever the day is, like, I follow a workout plan.
Oh,
So
nice.
whatever that is, like for that day, that's what I do. But I have to go. Like, that's something that I have to do. Either I'm going to the gym or I'm going out. And honestly, maybe I just sit in my backyard, talk to my family, or talk to some friends after work too. But at the end of the day, I have to go do some type of physical activity to make my mind, like take my mind off of it too. For
But
sure. I think that's the best outlet, I would say, like doing something like in the gym or like riding a bike or something like that. That's something that's been helpful after a stressful day.
so where is your mental health at today on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best?
10
And
being the best.
yep, and
Okay.
wait. And if it's not in the best place right now, like what are you doing to address that?
Today is at about a 7, 6 or 7 today, I would say. And I think getting organized is what's going to help that out. And self-discipline is going to help that out. A lot of this situation, a lot of things that I'm going through right now is off of lack of probably self-discipline. So I think I need to just focus and be more in tune with what I got going on. There's a lot of distractions out here. I need to be just more focused on what I got. The older you get, the more you realize like there's a lot of different things that distract you from not just sitting down, because when you're in school, right? All you have to worry about in high school, middle school, elementary school, your mom tells you to come home, sit down, and go to the table and do work, right? Whatever you got to do. Why can't we continue to follow that as we got older? As we get older, it's so much harder to just sit down and just do that, right? I think getting back to the roots of just starting to be structured, just being more structured is going to help me.
Absolutely. And you know what, Kenny? I actually have
Organization.
right. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what, Kenny? I actually have one last question for you because I
Yeah,
just thought
yeah.
of this. So since you got your license this year, is that right?
December of last, so
Ah, okay.
December 20, right? That's last 2023, December 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've
Mm-hmm.
been licensed since December and December of 2023. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing what you know now that you've been in the field for a while, what
Mm-hmm.
would you tell somebody else that's trying to get into the field, just like freshly graduated and everything?
Pick an internship that you see yourself working in, or like apply to an internship and hopefully you get it. Well, if you can apply to any internship, apply to an internship that you can see yourself working in. Because being a therapist in a school is a lot different than being a therapist at an FEP clinic. You know what I mean? Or at a wherever you're at. You know what I mean? So I would say like, because even like the protocols, the workflow is all different everywhere. And like people have to relearn how to be a therapist in that location. You know what I mean? Because it's different everywhere. Like just for example, like one of my colleagues where I'm at now, she was an in-home therapist for addiction, and she was saying like that was something that I had to learn how to sit in the office again and like do paperwork and things I wasn't doing as an in-home therapist. You know what I mean? So I would say my advice would be to a young therapist that just graduated is to try to get an internship you can see yourself working in if you can. And also don't be too overwhelmed if you don't know everything. You know what I mean? Take it one step at a time and maybe try to find a mentor. Find a mentor in the field. That helped me. I still
That
speak to my professors from undergrad, so that's been helpful.
I still talk to my supervisors from my internship. They're super
Hmm.
helpful. I love them.
Yeah, same. Actually, I speak to them too, so that's something that's been helpful. Like finding a mentor in the field, because it's like there's no guide in that. Like to being a clinician, there is no guide.
absolutely. And you know what, that actually resonated with me too, because like prior to working where we work, I was a school therapist.
Hmm.
So it is definitely a whole different ball game going from school to this to what we do now.
Right.
And it's
Hmm.
true, like you have to relearn being a therapist, but in that setting, right?
But in
And
that setting,
uh-huh,
yeah.
uh-huh. And I feel like that's so true because I didn't know what to do with myself because like I was so used to working with like teens and kids and everything like that. And then I had to deal with again like the psychosis, bipolar, doing all, and it's just I'm just not used to it.
It's different. Yes. 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 Hmm. They
Oh,
need to specify that in schools too. They don't really tell you that in school.
absolutely. I wish there's so many things that I wish that they taught us in school but didn't. Like you're really thrown into this just like I don't know. They just
had,
right.
yeah, exactly. Like an event, like it was, I don't know, like St. Like so I went to grad at St. John's, and it was a very good program, but it still didn't prepare you for the workflow. You know what I mean? But I guess no university is going to directly prepare you for the workflow, but they could have did a better job with something.
Yeah,
I would
Yeah.
say.
absolutely. All
Mhm.
right, Kenny. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And Kenny,
Yeah.
I think the first time that we've ever really spoken was at our job, like what during our
Yeah.
lunchtime, and to know that you have all these goals and just like all these aspirations is so admirable, and it got me so excited to meet. Like I get so excited meeting people like you because I also have a lot of goals and aspirations, and just like meeting people like you is so inspiring. So I'm
No,
so happy.
you guys are doing the inspiring work. I really love what you guys got going here. This is amazing, and like keep rolling with it because this is something on the brink of something huge. So I really like this.
That's
You
Yeah,
the
made me
goal,
so
man.
happy.
yeah, this is really good. Really, really good. Yeah,
Honestly, thank you so
yeah.
much.
No
Oh,
problem.
Kenny.
Anytime. I appreciate you guys for
Yes,
sure.
Absolutely. All
definitely.
right, guys. So please like, subscribe, share this with your friends and family. Listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram, therapists_unmasked. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.